Every masterpiece begins in silence, before the first brushstroke, before the first line of code. It begins in that fragile space between thought and creation, where an idea waits, restless, unfinished, alive. And here, in a place where art meets architecture, we step into a world where imagination refuses to stay on canvas. It builds walls. It raises beams. It breathes into the very air around us. Welcome to the Artist Studio Loft, reborn through AI barn-dominium design. The Studio Loft has always been a sanctuary, a place where time seems to stretch and dissolve under tall ceilings, where light falls like paint across the floor, where creativity doesn't ask permission. It's where mistakes become discoveries, and where solitude feels less like loneliness and more like freedom. But what if this sanctuary didn't have to exist only in cramped city corners or aging industrial shells? What if it could expand, grow, transform into something bigger, something bolder? What if the artist studio wasn't just a place to work, but a place to live, to gather, to dream without limits? That's where the barn-dominium arrives, a canvas in its own right. Strong bones, open space, rustic roots with modern grace. And when imagination touches it, when an artist steps inside, it becomes more than shelter. It becomes an extension of the mind itself. And now, a new collaborator enters the story, not with brush or chisel, but with code, artificial intelligence, a presence that doesn't seek to replace the artist, but to ask new questions, to offer new forms, to suggest what might otherwise be unseen. This is the beginning, a fusion of silence, space, and possibility, a rebirth of the Studio Loft, reimagined through AI, reborn in the language of the barn-dominium. Did you know that 70% of homeowners feel their space doesn't reflect their style? Don't be part of that statistic. Subscribe and start designing a home that truly feels yours. There's something eternal about the artist's loft. High ceilings that stretch like open skies, brick walls that seem to carry whispers of every thought, every sketch, every sleepless night spent chasing beauty, and then the light, soft in the morning, golden in the afternoon, pouring through wide windows as if the world itself is eager to witness creation. A loft isn't just four walls. It's a cathedral for creation, a sanctuary where silence transforms into color, where empty space becomes melody, where mistakes aren't failures, but doorways to unexpected truths. Within these walls, time doesn't tick the same way. Hours bend, stretch, and dissolve into the rhythm of making. There is romance here, a romance older than any trend. It's in the smell of paint lingering on the air, the echo of footsteps on worn wooden floors, the way light and shadow dance like collaborators. The loft has always been a place where the world outside fades, and the inner world, the one of dreams and visions, finally takes shape. But as enchanting as it is, the artist's loft is not without its chains. Often tucked into aging industrial buildings or overpriced city blocks, it offers inspiration, yes, but not always practicality. It can be beautiful yet fragile, inspiring but limited. There is never enough room to stretch, never enough warmth to invite others in, never quite enough to live fully within the space that demands so much of your soul. And so the question lingers, must a space for creation always come at the cost of comfort? Must inspiration demand sacrifice? Or could the artist's loft, timeless as it is, grow into something more, something vast enough to hold not just art, but life itself? A beautiful home is not a dream, it's an art, and you're the artist. Subscribe and start creating spaces that speak to the soul. But what if the studio wasn't only a place to paint, but a place to live, to dream, to belong? What if the sanctuary of the loft could stretch beyond its limits, no longer confined to city corners or crumbling industrial shells, but reborn as something vast, open, alive? That is where the barn-dominium steps forward. a structure born from simplicity, shaped by practicality, yet carrying within it a strange kind of poetry. Steel beams rising like the bones of a cathedral. Wide, endless rooms that feel less like walls and more like horizons. It is rustic, yes, but in that rusticity lies a freedom few spaces can hold. The barn dominium has become the canvas of the 21st century. Not rigid, not closed, but adaptable, ready to shift, expand, and become whatever its creator imagines. For the artist, it is a gift, a place to breathe deeply, to spill paint without fear of running out of room, to host friends, to display work, to live and create without ever stepping outside the embrace of inspiration. Imagine the warmth of Reclaimed wood brushing against sleek, minimal lines. Skylights opening the ceiling to the sky, flooding the day with light, letting the night pour in like ink. A place where loft-like intimacy and barn-born openness are not opposites, but partners in the same vision. It feels limitless. Boundaries dissolve. Life and art merge until there is no line between them. And just when the space feels complete, when the dream seems whole, something else enters the conversation. A quiet presence, not made of timber or steel, but of code and possibility. A voice that does not shout but whispers. And then technology whispered a new possibility. Transform your home, transform your life. Subscribe now, and let's create spaces you'll love forever. Artificial intelligence doesn't paint with oils or pastels, but with probabilities, data, and dreams of 1,000 unseen designs. It drifts into the story like a ghostly presence, not loud, not forceful, but always watching, always calculating. Where an artist sees instinct, AI sees patterns. Where a hand hesitates over a canvas, AI traces possibilities in an instant. It does not replace the soul of creation, but it does something strange. It begins to whisper suggestions. What if the studio faced the morning sun to catch every golden hour? What if the skylights stretched wider, pouring light across canvases without a single shadow? What if rustic warmth could fold seamlessly into modern efficiency, not as compromise, but as harmony? Here, the machine becomes a co-designer. It sketches not with charcoal, but with algorithms. It measures not just the size of the room, but the way the human body will move through it, the way breath will feel easier when walls open instead of close. It asks questions the humans sometimes forget to ask, and it offers answers drawn from a library larger than memory itself. But beneath the wonder lies a tension. Is AI a silent collaborator or a quiet threat? Can a machine truly understand the chaos of creativity, the storm of half-finished thoughts, the disorder that births something beautiful? Or will it smooth the edges too much, tidy the mess that art requires? The loft, the barn dominium, the dream, they stand at a threshold. One step guided by human passion, one step guided by machine suggestion. And somewhere between the two, a new kind of studio begins to take shape, a place not of one creator, but of two, one made of flesh, the other of code. And now the vision unfolds. An artist studio loft, not tucked away in the forgotten corners of a city, but rising within the openness of a barn dominium. It is vast, yet intimate, bold, yet tender, guided by the quiet logic of AI, but softened, completed by the imperfect touch of human hands. The space reveals itself piece by piece. Tall windows stretch toward the sky, flooding the room with a generosity of light. Iron stairs curve upward, carrying you to a mezzanine that feels suspended between earth and dream. Below, walls transform into a gallery, ever-changing, alive with color, a place where finished works meet the rawness of sketches. And everywhere there is movement, a space flexible enough to bend with the rhythms of life, to be a studio at dawn, a gathering hall by evening, a home always. What lingers most is not the steel or the glass, not even the clean lines drawn by algorithms. What lingers is something quieter, a sense that the building itself breathes with you, that it doesn't just hold your art, but listens to it, reflects it back. Because in the end, it is not steel or glass or code that makes it real, but the human heartbeat that decides what stays and what fades. The brush dipped in paint, the footstep across the floor, the laughter shared in an open room. These are the details no algorithm can predict, and yet they are the very soul of the design. The Fusion vision is not about surrendering to machines nor clinging to the past. It is about a partnership, a dialogue between calculation and chaos, precision and passion, a space where both can coexist, and in that coexistence, something timeless is born. And so, we return to the silence where it all began. The lines, the beams, the walls, they're no longer just an idea. They are alive, imagined through the meeting of two worlds, the instinct of the artist and the precision of the machine. But listen closely, because here is the twist. Perhaps this story was never about AI designing for artists at all. Perhaps it is about artists teaching AI how to dream. The machine can calculate, it can optimize, it can suggest, but only the human spirit can turn an empty room into a sanctuary. Only a hand, dipped in paint, can give meaning to a surface. And yet, as that brush touches canvas, AI reflects it back in its own strange way, a digital echo of the same gesture. Two creators, one of flesh, one of code, mirroring each other in pursuit of something larger. It is not a contest, not a replacement. It is a conversation. One that whispers, what can we imagine together? How far can the canvas stretch? How high can the walls rise when both intuition and intelligence shape them? So now, the question turns to you. What would your studio look like? A loft above the clouds, drenched in light? A barn dominium carved from your wildest imagination? Vast enough to hold not only your art, but your life itself? Let the canvas open wider. Let the walls of possibility expand. Share your vision below, because perhaps the next dream begins not here, not in code, not in wood or glass,